everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing some silk painting or fabric painting, and I'm just going to run through the things that you need to do this project. You need some kind of fabric. This one is silk, but you can easily use some fine or thin cotton, or some even some thicker canvas works quite well too. And I've got a metal hoop which I've shown you before to glue it onto. Also a pencil and a marker, some quite strong glue like Bostik, a couple of pairs of scissors, erasers, brushes and some water, and then these are called outliner pens, and they're for outlining for fabric painting, stops the paint from, or the ink from running, and some silk paints. You can also use, if you don't have silk paints, you can also use acrylic paint mixed with a good bit of water to make it more runny, and that will work as well. Okay, and some paper for sketching out your design. So the first thing you start with is a circle of fabric. I just laid my hoop down earlier on, drew around it and cut it out so it's the general shape. And then I'm going to take my glue, and you have to be quite careful with this because you don't want it to go everywhere. Just a little bit of glue going around the hoop. Be careful not to squeeze too hard on the glue, because you don't want the glue going everywhere and all over your fabric. And this kind of lightweight fabric glues very easily. So taking two corners opposite, just fold it over, and the same here, and the same here, and you'll see that you can actually pull the fabric more tightly as you go around, just stretching the fabric onto the frame. Like that, so all the way around. And when you've got it basically on, go back round and just pull tightly all the way around it, pulling on the fabric so that the fabric is stretching tightly onto the frame. You can see that's happening there. It's always good when you start off to have your fabric on, because that will give you a nice flat surface straight away, and you won't be trying to pull out any creases in the fabric. There we go. So that's glued. Now you'll see it's a little bit, long here, but I just went round with a pair of pinking shears and cut it off nice and tight to create my my framed fabric. So there's another one that I did a bit earlier on. Now, to decide what you'd like to draw, lay your wireframe down and draw around so you know exactly the size you can work with. And here you sketch whatever you'd like to paint. It could be something like from nature, it could be flowers or leaves, it could be going back to your teddy bear design from last week, or something geometric or a mandala. There's so many options. This sheet here, I sketched out a sunflower, so I'm just going to outline that with the Sharpie, and you'll see how the design comes together. When you're doing plants or flowers, it's good to make it slightly random. So some petals smaller, some petals larger, because that's the way that it would be in nature. Some crossing over each other, some coming forward. Okay. And then between each petal, another petal. This is the way that sunflowers are made up. Of course, every plant is different. So if you want to make something look really natural, it's definitely worth studying the plant first. Also, you can Google images like this for colouring, and you can print them out and use them as a starting point for your designs. Okay. And then the centre of the sunflower, which is seeds. If you've ever looked at the head of the sunflower, it's made up of very tightly packed seeds. And then maybe a few little marks like this, just to show the way that the petals grow and are folded into the centre of the flower. Makes it just look more lifelike. And a few in those. Okay. So the next job is to transfer this image onto your silk or your fabric, and as you can see, if I lay that down on top, because the marker is quite strong and dark, you can see through the fabric and you can easily trace over it. Some people like to work with a pencil first, but I usually go straight in with the outlining pen. And I'm going to be working with the gold and the black. I'll show you how that works. I'm going to be using the gold for the petals and then move to the black for the centre. If you're right-handed, start on the left-hand side and the other way around. If you're left-handed, start on the right-hand side, because this outliner pen stays runny for quite a long time. So if you're working and you're working this way across, you can easily smudge it. So always work across, away from where you're working. Doesn't matter if you don't get it completely accurate. These projects look beautiful even with a few mistakes here and there. In fact, often they look better for having a few mistakes in them. So what you're doing is following the line and at the same time squeezing the tube very gently. Don't squeeze the tube too hard, because too much will come out all at the same time. You just want to squeeze it very gently and follow the curve of the lines. Okay. Now I'm going to stop here and I'm going to go away and blow dry this with a hairdryer. Just speeds up the drying process. When you're using the hairdryer, make sure you don't go too close with the hairdryer. Just blow dry a few inches away so that you don't end up smudging your design. Okay, and then we'll come back in a bit and we'll start doing the painting. Okay, so we're going to carry on now with the silk painting. We're going to start painting. You can see here that I finished the outlining. I actually switched to the copper for the seeds because I think it looked more natural. These outliners come in a few different colours: gold, black, silver, copper, and I think there's a kind of a white as well. So choose whichever one you think will look good with your particular design. And I'm going to start painting the petals. So the silk paints I'm using are very runny, so be careful when you open the lids. If you hold the bottle on one side, it can easily spill out. So make sure you always hold it upright and then take off the lid. Before you start, give the ink a little bit of a shake, the bottle a little bit of a shake, which will help the ink to mix better. So I'm going to go with this lovely sunflower yellow for the petals, but I'm going to also do a little bit of a mix for shading. So I'm putting a tiny bit of brown and a little bit of the yellow, and I'm going to use that later on for doing some shading. So I'll start with just the yellow. When you start using these inks, they're very different to other kinds of paints you might use. You'll see when I put some on, it starts to spread very quickly. So it's good to paint within the design, but not necessarily right up to the line, the outliner that you did. Let the ink just spread itself and it will fill those spaces in time. If you put too much ink on, it can run over the outliner. That you can work that to your advantage. It might look good, but if you want a neat job, just keep it a little bit away. And you can see that I'm using a piece of paper here underneath, some sugar paper. This ink goes through silk very, very easily, so you don't want to ruin your table underneath. Bring the colour right up towards the seeds. The more you do this, the more practice you'll get at it, and you'll become more confident. You can see I'm always starting in the centre of the petal and allowing the ink to run outwards. So, first row of petals done. Now I'm going to go to this colour. Just try a bit on the plate. You can see it's a mixture between brown and yellow. I'm going to use a little bit in the centre of each petal. Just work the colour outwards. To create a little bit more depth to your painting. When you're painting like this, it's always good to start off by adding the colour gently, so you can then add more later if you want to make it deeper, but it's hard to take away the colour if you put on too much. Okay, now I'm just going to wash my brush. I always have a a little bit of tissue handy. We can go back then to the yellow. Might even use a little bit of this actually in between, just to give a little bit more depth. When you're painting floral images, keep your strokes nice and light, and these little kind of lines that you're doing here, or that I'm doing, will just give suggestion of the way that the petal grows. Try not to fill the brush too much. On the other hand, if your brush is too dry, it won't cover well. Okay. Always wash your brush before going back into the main colour. You don't want to end up mixing colours together in the pot, because that way you'll never have a pure colour. Much better to have a little plate handy where you can try your colours out. You can also mix these inks with water if you would like to get a really, really pale colour, or make a kind of a wash for a background perhaps. Very handy, and it's a very beautiful effect as well. Okay, I'll go back to the darker one again and go for my final round. I'll wash my brush again. Back to the yellow for the tips of those petals. Okay, so I'm going to take another break there. I'm going to go and blow dry that again, so I've got a nice dry surface to work on, and I'll come back to you and I'll show you the seeds and the surrounding. Okay, so this is the flower finished painting. I'm going to start working on the seeds now. I'm going to be using a very, very small brush for this because it's so small and delicate. I'm starting off with going back to the browny yellow for the actual colour of the seeds, and that can change a bit. You can go from slightly darker, slightly lighter in places, as seeds would be. So it's just a little dab of colour. Okay, now I'm going to wash my brush. And I'm going to move on to this purple. It's like a kind of a plummy purple colour. These kind of colours are really handy for creating shadow in a painting without going for black. So you go for black, black is very dark. So I'm just going to put a little bit of purple between the shapes of the seeds. Just using the very tip of my brush so you don't see the white of the silk, and you're creating a little bit of depth behind the shapes of the seeds. Now I'm going to put a tiny bit of brown in there as well. You can use these colours on top of each other, so once one layer has dried you can put another layer on top and it strengthens the colour. You even put a third layer on top as well if you wish. So just working a darker colour behind the seeds. Okay, so this still isn't finished, but I'm going to start working on the outside behind the sunflower. Back to my my larger brush, and I think I'm going to go for the ultramarine, which is a lovely deep blue. Be very careful when you go with a dark colour like this. You can see how much it's spreading. So you want to make sure you don't ruin those lovely points. So just dab on the ink close, just close, but not going right up to the outliner. The paint will spread itself and it will keep on spreading for a few minutes. So don't try and push it too soon. You can always go back with the tip of a small brush if you want to fill in details. And you can see I'm working around and I'm still using those little kind of shapes, strokes with the brush, trying to keep it nice and soft. Sometimes all you need to do is just the tip of the brush. Dab it, just one small dab, and that will be enough to fill into smaller shapes, spaces. Now you can see we're nearly back at the beginning. And just a few little bits there that still need to be joined in. So when you come to these bits, use small strokes again, because you'll find where you cross from one little bit of painting to the next, you can see where it's getting deeper in colour. So you want to try and blend that. It's not got a hard edge. Keep all your strokes going in the same direction, moving away from the petals. Nice and soft all the way around. Okay. Now, I'm just going to give my brush another little wash, and I'm going to go back to the plum and add a few just random strokes just around the edge. Don't need too much of this, just to give a little bit more interest to the background, the outside of it. And you can see how much the two colours working together, how much more depth you get from the colour. Okay, so now I'm going to go and blow dry again. We'll come back and I'm going to add some little details with the outliner pen, and then we'll be finished. Okay, now we're going to finish off using the black outliner pen, just to add a little bit of detail. And going back around from the centre, just little touches here and there to add more definition to the seeds. You have to remember that everybody's style is different, so if you don't want to do this part of it, or there's something else you want to do instead, or you think would look better, you must trust your instincts and go with that. The ideas I'm showing you are only things that I come up with. They're not right or wrong, they're just different to maybe you would do. And I'm going to use the black again, but I'm going to use it very lightly. You see how I'm lifting it away so that you're getting the shape of the petal, but it's not a hard outline like we did with the gold. It's just giving some depth. Just move those away. You can see how runny they are and how easily they can fall over and spill. The next layer. So now you're using the outliner a little bit more like, I suppose, a pencil or a marker. You're just using it to add definition to what you've done. You no longer need it to stop the ink from running, because the ink has been painted and it's dry. This is just to add a little bit of depth and a few little strokes, not too many. When you do your strokes in the middle, keep them really light. You don't want to overwhelm the picture. All that lovely paintwork. Might go back to the copper outliner now. You can see that makes a lovely line, but it's not as sharp as the black. Just again gives a little bit of depth. Okay. And I might just do I'm only just trusting my instincts here, but just doing a couple of little, I don't know what you call those, little sparks, just to give a little bit of interest to the background and give that feeling of a sunburst. Okay, I'm happy with that. These look lovely, hung from a string, like maybe like a nylon thread, and hung in a window. They look really beautiful. They catch the light really well. Or you can have them this way, and you could have them framed. Totally up to you.